two, one. How's it going, everybody? This is going to be my fourth podcast. I have my friend Z, which I've met about 2-3 years ago. And if you guys haven't noticed, there's a trend going on. I met everybody around the same time. I don't know why. Maybe I just didn't have friends past 3 years ago. So I'm just going to leave it to Ms. Z to kind of give you guys a brief bio and then kind of see if you guys could get to know her a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So just keeping it real and conversational. My name is Z. Fun fact, my full name is Zeahlot, and it's the only one in the world. And, I'm grinding out there. I'm hustling. And my hustle actually happens to be humans. So I actually am a hair and makeup artist of years, and I actually started out here in the AV. And, I was just taking care of so many people and having these bomb conversations like we're going to have today. And I realized, I was like, wait a minute, hold up. I'm their free therapist. So that's what I did. I went back to school, graduate school, and I became a psychotherapist. And then, over the years, my business has evolved, and now I'm coaching for practice development. So I'm coaching other mental health and professionals. And besides that, I'm a new fur mama. That's been a whole situation in itself, even this morning, trying to get ready and still trying to, make sure she's okay. And, taking care of, with my parents. And, that's a bit about me. I actually just turned 33. This is my first. Yeah, thank you. This is my first week into my 33rd year around the sun. And I'm just kind of really excited for what's coming. Nice. So, yeah, I'm 33. I don't look 33. And I think for the first time in my life, I do feel my age, which is a really great feeling.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like health-wise, mental-wise?
Like just all of it. Like I've always felt kind of like ever since I was a kid, like I always felt like older or like ahead of like.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, right, kind of like, well, I don't need to play with no Barbies. Yeah, like I don't need to do that.
Right.
So
yeah, usually when people are like, oh, I don't want to feel my age, it's almost like
the opposite.
The opposite, exactly.
Yeah.
So I met Ms. Z like at a function a couple years ago. Yeah. It was just like a random
networking for Latinos.
Yeah, and it was technically I wasn't even supposed to be there. I was invited through the photographer that was actually there, and he just asked me, he's like, hey, just want to come and just meet people. Once again, all my clientele that I have at this point has all been through word of mouth or like marketing through social media. It was never me one-on-one, like actually calling somebody, going up to somebody and saying, hey, this is what I do. So for me, it was like, it wasn't really that I wanted to go for that. It was just like, oh, he asked me, let me just go. And I'm just going to treat it like another event, which I did. And then throughout the night, it was basically not really my scene to begin with.
Mine either, to be honest. Yeah.
It was more like a more mature
crowd
event. Yeah, and I wasn't really relating to the crowd.
Yeah.
And then of course you kind of popped up out of nowhere, like towards the end. I remember you tapped me on the shoulder and you gave me your business card, but there's like loud music that day, and then I'm like, oh, let's kind of like over here.
Right. Let's talk.
Yeah, what's going on? And then you kind of gave me like your introduction. Hi, my name is Zeahlot and blah, and all this stuff. Like, I don't really remember exactly what you said because it was like right when I was packing up, but I do remember giving you my contact, and you gave me your contact. A couple weeks later, you ended up texting me, and we ended up finding out that you knew my sister and you're from the AV, and like small world because we were out in the LA area, and it was so random that you grew up in the area that I grew up, and your parents technically lived
like maybe a couple blocks.
Yeah, like a couple minutes away. I'm like, what the heck? What is going on here? So I thought that was pretty fun. And of course, throughout that conversation, and of course, throughout, months of actually getting to know you, then I actually got to see what you were doing. And for me, meeting people that are actually driven, self-driven and self-motivated, it really it's one of those things that it's attractive. Like as far as like, I'm always going towards those people, like for whatever reason, just because I feel like that energy is very positive. And I think my last podcast I had Vic, and he's very health oriented guy.
Yeah.
And I like that about him. So I like talking to him, not only because of that, but because of that energy that is given to him off of what he does, lifestyle wise. And as far as for you, like it's just basically the same thing. Like I always see you hustling. I always see you doing your videos. I always see you self-marketing, and it's always you're always trying to figure out new ways on how to self-market yourself. And that's very, very motivated as far as like as a creator.
Yeah.
I'm the complete opposite. I'm like, let me just do the product video. Let me just do this for this person. But now I'm kind of going
Building
the opposite.
you.
Yeah, I'm going the opposite where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, let's
Yeah.
bring Ms. Z in, see what she has to say. And then, of course, I do want to hear your, like, maybe your small bio as far as, like, why you got into the career base that you chose. And then, of course, what motivates you to keep going as far as, like, your worth ethic. I think one of the questions that I've had in the past for you was, like, what is your drive?
Yeah.
And we did have a conversation on that, and you recommended me a book.
True North.
Yes.
Yeah, the field book, though. The field book, not the book, because the book is a little bit on the drier side, but the field book is everything.
Yeah, but yeah. I think I read, or I didn't read it. I drive all the time, so I'm always listening to the audiobook. Yeah. So that's technically what I've been listening to, which is very interesting and a different perspective as far as, like, what drives people into the career paths that they get into and what is a leader and all this other stuff. So if you can just kind of give us a brief bio as far as, like, why you chose therapy, and of course the specific type of therapy that you do, so that just people could actually see what you kind of, like, offer as far as, like, within like services. Yeah, within so like service. The business side of it. Yeah, just a tiny bit.
You know what? I'm actually going to say, Irving, that I don't think there's a, for a long time, I thought that there was this, like, work-life balance or, like, this split between, like, here's who I am as a business person, here's who I am as a daughter, as a friend, as a coworker, blank, 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 fill in the blank, right? But I think, like, the more and more work I've been doing on myself, I'm fully realizing there is no separation. Before I answer that, I think this is so important to really kind of, like, just throw out there and have, like, people really consider that. They say that the human is like a 4-room house. There's the spiritual, there's the mental, there's the emotional, and there's the physical, right? And there's so many different, but, like, main ones, right? And they say that, there's a different version of you for each one. And the goal over time for the most authentic, true person you are is that if you let the walls down from each room, you would see yourself the same. Or at least close to the same version of you.
Okay.
That's some deep shit.
Yeah.
So right? That's some deep shit. So in knowing that, like, people have asked me so often, like, what? Like, you were a hairdresser, you did makeup, like, that's why, like, it's always on point, But I did it for a living, and then I loved it, but it wasn't really yummy. It wasn't, like, completely there. And it wasn't until I started reflecting back on my 27th birthday, my mom started to tell me that when she was 3 months pregnant with me, they told her to abort me. Wow. Because they told her I was going to have Down syndrome.
What?
And they chose not to. And that completely changed things for me. And I was right getting out of grad school. I was, like, right graduating. So I've always kind of known, like, conversation is dope. Like, it's I think for me, it's the most intimate way you can get to know somebody.
Yes.
Like, just deep ass conversation though, right? Like that yummy where you're like, damn, I didn't even know that. And all of this came to me and I was like, that's my purpose. And I think no matter what it is I choose to do with my time in exchange time for money or time for energy, right? Or connecting with people, it always goes right back to my purpose. And if that's not in alignment with it, I probably shouldn't be doing it.
Wow.
So my purpose is to live much more healed and wounded. That's the first step.
Yeah.
And in knowing that, to provide that same opportunity to others. And I think I could tell you from here to Sunday how many different types of therapy there is. And, there's one where we explore the future and there's one where we go back and forget all of that. It's straight up, it's just, what do you want in this lifetime for you to feel? And I'm also a big believer of different lifetimes. I do believe that. And this isn't my first rodeo. This is probably, like, my 5th or 6th.
Wow.
So that's, like, some deep right there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And as far as, like, the conversations that we've had, either via text or actually on the phone, which have been brief, but they've always been very, like, insightful.
Deep. Yeah.
Exactly. But I always feel like there are certain people that I know that I could talk to right from the get-go. Like, it's very... a small amount of people that I could do that with, and it's a very small amount that I know that I could do it with, because the type of conversation that they're going to give me is the type of conversation that I'm seeking. Because I could have technically a conversation with anybody.
True.
But what am I really going to relate towards that conversation? And basically, am I going to feel in some sort of way energized, or where you're saying you're energy seeking or conversational seeking, as far as, like, are they going to motivate me in some way, or are they going to give me something that I didn't know, or I did know, but they just said it in a way that my brain understood it. It clicked.
Added value.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And as far as, like, our conversations, every time I get a chance to talk to you, I'm always asking you certain questions, and I'm like, what drives you? Like, because I'm self-driven too, but there are certain things that I just don't understand about myself that I'm trying to figure out still, which technically this podcast is doing
Part
for
of
me
it.
at this point, before the podcast, you had asked me, well, what's the purpose of the podcast? And my answer was, technically there isn't a purpose as far as like a purpose for each podcast or people that I bring into to the podcast. It's more of just, it's for that, like each podcast has its own meaning. Like each person that I bring in has their own wealth that they could incite for myself, and not only for myself but the people that are actually listening to it. It overall, the demographic for this podcast, I don't want there to be a demographic. One, I don't feel like I'm the smartest person or the most intellectual or the most athletic, the most anything, I'm just a normal person. That's kind of what I wanted to go for, is the individual that kind of like feels like, well, I don't wear a tie. Well, I don't wear this and I don't wear that. And to be honest with you, this is what I wear like on a
all
day,
day, every day.
I wear my hat with business guys, that they have like a lot of money and they're wearing nice ties, Rolexes. My watch is like $10 from Walmart. Like I honestly don't care as far as like what I'm wearing. And that's kind of what I want to inspire other people to kind of feel comfortable with what they have.
Their authentic self.
Yeah, it's just like whatever. Like this shirt's like probably like 3 years old. I'm like, you told me yesterday, like, what should I wear, Irvin? I was like, those are the questions I don't think about.
No. Because of you now, I'm asking those questions because you're like, don't do patterns.
Oh, that's where.
So then I got really boring, everybody. I got boring. I'm like, fine, black. And then just a little bit of color, right?
Okay, so that's for headshots. Certain things I do ask about. Like, because patterns, as far as like clothing wise, if you're if I'm going to do a headshot with you, the most distracting thing that you could ever give a headshot photographer is patterns on your actual clothing. Yeah. Sometimes jewelry is pretty distracting, but it's usually the clothing and the type of clothing that you're wearing and the colors that you're wearing, because it's the face that we're focusing on. But sometimes the clothing is it gets distracting. That's all it really is. But as far as like on a daily, I wake up, I'm like, oh, this shirt looks good. It looks clean. I'm like, okay, let me just wear it. And I feel like that's kind of what I want to do as far as like for the audience that's listening. I do want to bring in my friends that are basically self-driven as far as what they do on a daily, like you are. But I don't want it to just be that. I want it to be more of like, oh, these two people are having a conversation, and it sounds like the conversations that I have with my friends. Yeah. But in overall, there's something in that conversation that I could relate to. There isn't a lot of Latina therapists that I've seen
come across.
So I feel like that's something that's very important to kind of show my audience, which is a general broad of an audience. And then of course there are not a lot of guys that look like me that I've seen on TV or that are basically willing to go behind the camera because they're like, oh, it's because I'm not handsome, or I mumble and I do the
videos. I'm the
introvert.
Behind.
I do want there to be something in between, like every podcast, like a mode for each podcast. For this podcast, I honestly feel like it's more of just like I want there to be I just want it to be a conversation where people could actually get to know you as a person, not only as a therapist,
right?
And like actually,
or the businesswoman, or any of that.
Yeah, and if there is
chilling with me, conversation.
If there is a person that actually wants to seek therapy or has thought about therapy, there could be like, oh, well, she talks like my tia, or she talks like
my homegirl.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that I would want. I would want there to be like some inspiration as far as like, okay, that could be my next step. There is a therapist that talks like me, and I want there to be some sort of communication, and that barrier that I have about what therapy is, I want it to be kind of just like, let's just knock it off right now. Like, let's just kind of just go for it, and maybe give you a call, or if not, a therapist that's nearby their location. Absolutely. But as far as that stigma, I want it to be that, I just want that stigma to kind of go away. I know we did a project earlier, last year or this year?
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, and that was basically kind of the same incentive for that project, wasn't it? Like you guys were kind of wanting there to be like videos, and then just kind of like a brief testing of, I don't know how you guys were kind of going about it, because I wasn't behind the scenes as far as like actually going and doing the marketing for it. I just did the headshots. I think that's where we kind of went about the clothing. Can you kind of go off of that? Because I think that kind of like entwines with what I'm trying to say with the whole, like, I want there to be not a discretion. I want there to be just like a comfortable conversation with another person, another human being. And I think that's kind of what the mode was for that project. Are you guys still doing that, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's developing. It's just like COVID has really shifted things like ridiculously. I think with a lot of people, even this, I mean, we go outside here and we go to a restaurant, like we have to wear our mask, right? Yeah. So COVID's really shifted things. So I think for me, what I've done is just paused on anything else because they've had no choice but to pause.
Oh, okay.
But for me, like I really, truly, authentically love what I do.
Yeah.
So I'm continuing with it, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of videos that you post on YouTube and in your stories that, which kind of just like, just plug in your info as far as like where people could actually find.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, here's the thing. Like I worked on it, right? Like the branding and marketing. Yeah. So it's Vida Therapy across the board. Okay. Whether you find us on Instagram, whether you find us on YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest, right? Pinterest, everything. And then for me personally, it's my name actually on Instagram, Zeahlot. So I think I'm dope. People who have their name as their handle and just that, like not the real blank, right, like underscore and then their name. Like I got real lucky. Like it's my name. Yeah, that's dope. Yeah. I clap for myself. I think that's cool. Yeah,
your name.
My name is dope.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's one of those names that it was the first time I heard it.
It will be the only time.
Yeah, I was like, what was that? Could you say that again? I was like, oh, that's awesome though. Like as far as having a unique name. Growing up, was it hard to grow up with a name that people weren't familiar?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, it was really hard just growing up in general because I did grow up in this area-ish, and I was normally the only brown girl in my class. Like maybe one other one, but not much after that.
Out here?
Yeah, out here.
Really?
Yeah, out here. And I didn't move to the AV until I was 13.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, but I'm from the AV originally, like from the area-ish.
Oh, okay.
So we actually grew up like way out there, like out in like the desert. Like, so if you think like Lancaster, like even further north.
Like Rosemont?
Yeah. So there's like, like I'm the only brown girl in my class till I'm like maybe like 5th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I didn't speak English until I was 5. And then there was this whole situation, right? Like years ago, like maybe I was like 7 when they were doing this movement of like, if you speak a second language at home, you have to be an ESL.
Yeah, I was in that too.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like, what?
Yeah,
like I speak English perfectly.
And I honestly feel like it was just the education system at that time.
Yeah.
It wasn't really educated. They didn't educate themselves.
They didn't know.
And they didn't know how to treat kids that, you know,
or
like,
first gen.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming from.
And I come from the same basic background, you know, like like I had a hard time speaking English, even though like I got here when I was 3 years old and went to preschool and then went to kindergarten, but I did have a hard time communicating with my teachers. And then of course my teachers didn't know how to communicate with me. And of course, like the whole like literature was very hard for me, like up to like maybe like I want to say 2nd or 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Just because it was like one, they weren't educated enough to actually educate me in the way that I would have wanted to been educated at that time. And of course, they just threw you into a program like ESL.
Yep. And they bunch you in a group.
And then of course you get the stigma of like, oh, I must be slow. You know, like that's kind of how I felt. Like it did bring my self-esteem down. When I was in elementary, and I still remember that too. Like they put me in 2 programs actually. It was ESL and like this other one called speech or it was like I don't know what they were, but it took me a while to actually understand what it was. But it took me like until like after high school, like where like I started like really analyzing my background. I'm like, okay, why do I feel like this when it comes to literature? Why do I feel like this when it comes to education? Why do I feel like this when it comes to actually learning? And it was through like elementary school. Like I remember like that thought, like not knowing why you couldn't understand certain things, the level that other kids understood it.
Yeah.
You know, like it brought your self-esteem as far as like actually even wanting to learn other stuff because you felt slow. You're like, that's kind of where that I analyzed it as far as like how I analyze it now. But it's a lot different now. Like right now I'm like, whatever comes at me, like I gravitate to. Like I love learning new stuff. Like even if it's not within the spectrum of like marketing, videos, photography, music, you know, like it could be whatever, science, human behavior, therapy, like all that stuff. Like I love learning that stuff now. But back in the day, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, like there was a block in my brain, you know, like psychologically that I didn't understand until like I said later on that I analyzed it. And I'm like, oh shit, it was probably because of that, you know, like teachers weren't educated to educate me because the school system wasn't educating themselves to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of that, though, I mean, how many of your teachers actually look like you?
Very few.
Right. I remember the first time a teacher actually looked like me, I was maybe like, I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's crazy now that I really, and like, you know, it's funny. I've always kind of realized this like in my life, but I've had a lot more male role models and I have females, and even less now. I was recently asked in my USC program that I'm going through for leadership and entrepreneurship, what is mentorship to you? And I literally like started crying. I was like, damn, I haven't had Latinas in leadership and powerful positions. And powerful, I mean, they are authentically working in their authenticity and their purpose. Few, if any.
Yeah.
Maybe like one or two, but that's it.
And now that I think about it too, I don't remember having a Hispanic teacher.
Yeah, that can relate and or say like, well, what did mom and dad tell you about this homework sheet?
Or even the culture-wise, like talking about culture, like that's a big thing.
Huge.
Wow, that's a question that I never thought about.
Yeah.
That's
who looks like you.
Yeah, and I think I had a conversation with an ex-girlfriend too, because she would ask me about hairstyle, like, oh, why don't you like do your hair like this, and why don't you do your hair like that? And it was like the hairstyles like that I can't do because I don't have straight hair.
Right.
I have curly hair, fuzzy hair.
Okay.
And of course, everyone at that like whatever generation or whatever age I was at the time, like spiky hair, or, you know, like
the emo look.
I can't do that. Like my hair,
that's a lot of work.
I'm gonna look silly. I'm gonna need a freaking plancha. You know, like I have to straighten my hair. It's not gonna work for me. But even that kind of stuff, like the culture of like the styles of like, you know, where we're growing up, like it doesn't relate to us sometimes, and that even that brings you down. Like, well, I can't even do hair like other people. But yeah, those are certain things that I do think about every now and then. I'm like, wow, like. But now that growing up, I do like seeing like actors like Zeahlot Lopez that are higher positions, and I'm like, oh man, he's not handsome at all, but he's funny.
You don't think so? See, here's the thing. Like, it's so funny. Like, people will say that, but like, I think beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, like you never know what does it for somebody.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. But when it comes to like the general, like the aspect of what a handsome person would be or what a beautiful person would be, like the bone structure, and then, you know, like the body structure too. Like he himself, like he's always talking about how big his head is, you know, I'm like, but that makes it attractive because he
owns it.
Yeah, he is so funny, and he just puts it out there. I'm like, I have a big head, and he talks about his skin color, and I'm like, that brings confidence to someone that looks like him.
That's right.
You know? But I do agree, like, you know, like as far as like beauty, like, and
beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Yeah. I've had like so many conversations, even with like dude friends that I have. And I'm like, yo, if that's what does it for you, like, that's great, you know? And he's like, are you sure? Like, I don't know. And I'm like, if like you're with her, I'm not. Like, exactly. Like, that's your choice, man. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to really know that, I don't know, like for me personally, I feel like, yeah, okay, maybe, yes, it is important. I agree. But the soul connection you have with people goes so deep, it transcends, like, your body will change over time. Yeah. You know, like, I always say this to so many men. I'm like, you're tripping if you think that your girl's going to look the same pre and post children. Like, you're tripping. Like, that's not realistic. Yeah. And I think if people get into a relationship solely based just on the crust, the exterior, they're headed in the wrong direction. And hence why we have this, like, fucked up 50% plus divorce rate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do talk about relationships with my guy friends now because I feel more comfortable doing it now. Like, honestly, when I was like elementary, junior high, high school, we're just like dogging on each other, like, oh, you're gay and everything's gay, you know? But now it's a lot different because they're a lot more mature. I have friends that are actually married now. So they have the mentality of just understanding, you know, like actually going
commitment
through it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or responsibility.
Yeah, and it's a lot different. The conversations are completely different. Me personally, like, I don't see myself getting married anytime soon just because it's not in my in my mind
Right.
at this point.
Right.
It could
But
happen.
that's good. You know that you're not ready.
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
happen like at any point. Like I'm not gonna say I'm not willing to do it. It's just not in my head right now. Like it's just not. It hasn't come across.
It's not like in the forefront.
Yeah, it's something
Yeah.
that I'm not thinking about. It's like if it happens, if it happens. But if it doesn't at this point, like, you know, like I'm still happy. Like I do what I need to do on a daily, and I think that's
Yeah.
what really matters. But yeah, I definitely could relate to that stuff as far as like relationships and, you know, like people that seek a certain type of person off of the look, not off of the actual person. And I could honestly say I was the same way, you know, in high school.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we don't know.
Yeah, like I would always go after that, you know, like that beautiful girl, like, oh my God. Like, but of course you start talking to her, I'm like, oh, you're so boring. I'm like, I cannot really.
Girl, you empty. Like, girl, you're empty.
You're so boring.
Yeah. Or my favorite, like, you can't even carry a conversation with them. And I'm like,
my God.
I'm done. Yeah.
And I've had conversations with girls now that I actually understand what I want. And now it's a lot different because my, how would I put it? It's just like I have a threshold of as far as like how much I could take off of a person, like boredom. Like if they're boring, I have a level of
like a threshold of like filter of like I'm not gonna take
how much I could take as far as like, okay, I'm good. Thank you for
a boring.
Yeah, like okay, I can't do this because I remember back in high school I would talk to like really pretty girls and they were boring and they would say dumb stuff and I would laugh.
No depth.
Like I would just laugh and I'm like, you know, like acting like I'm interested in them, but I'm not really interested in them. And what they're trying to say, it's just like, oh, you have nice hair, or you're pretty, or you have nice eyes. You know, it was more of that. You know, I was just like playing it off. But now I'm like, oh my God, you're just boring. Like, okay, like I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But that's because of the relationships that I did have in the past. Like I did fall in love at one point, you know, and actually got to feel what that is like. And now that I felt that, it's a lot different dating because you're like, yeah, you're beautiful, but
what you got? Like, what's your added value? What's your
like
stack?
for me, the most attractive thing when it comes to like a girl that I want to meet is basically intelligence.
Yeah.
She has to be smarter than me.
You don't want your kids to die.
It's not that.
I mean, that's what it really goes back to, right? Like, I mean, if we think about it, like in the caveman days, like all they knew is like wider hips for like so they don't die in childbirth, right? Yeah. Or like breast size due to feeding the child so the child doesn't die. Like that's the purpose, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's what it goes back to.
Yeah.
You don't want your kid to die. Like if your partner or the mother of your child is intelligent, your kid's better off.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing with, exactly. And men are the same thing, you know, like women choose taller guys because they feel like they could actually
survive more.
Exactly. But that's like old mentality thinking.
Is it though?
Well, I still see it in our society. You know, that's basically what's portrayed now on TV and what's portrayed on marketing. You know, the models are still the slimmest. But I understand because I come from the marketing and the art side why they have to be so slim and so tall because it shows the texture of the material. And if you ever see a like really skinny model that are doing like weird poses, is so that it could wrinkle the actual material so you could see the texture. So that's why they do like these elbow poses. They look funny, but it's to show their bone structure, but it's to actually show the material. That's what it's for.
Huh, I never knew that.
Yeah. I used to think about it and I had to like Google
I'm still trying to work on like, you know, like the more and more I've been filming or like doing like photo shoots or whatnot, I'm like this nerd, like at heart of it though, or like no joke, Irving, like that's not me. Like, I think you know this, but like for years I was the one behind the camera on like behind the stage prepping the girls for camera work, bridal work, whatever it might be. And they were always like, oh, hey, come take a photo with us. I'm like, no, I'm good. Like I was never that. Yeah. And now me having to do this like purposefully for my business, it's weird. It's awkward.
Yeah.
Like having to be in front of a camera and it's actually me now. I did my own hair and my own makeup, but now it's for me.
Yeah.
And you're stepping into that same thing.
Yeah. But I think that's really awesome though, as far as like your path that you've been taking.
Yeah.
As far as like your career path and where it's lead you to. And every time that I talk to you, you're like, oh, now I want to do this. I'm like, how, where? Like,
where do I have the time?
Exactly. What are you doing?
I don't have the time.
Exactly. But I feel like because I'm not on your routine, like everything becomes a routine. You're like this.
You think so?
Yeah. Well, my lifestyle is a routine. Like everybody that tells me, how did you get into music full time? I'm like, it's a lifestyle. Like, you have to live
Yes.
it. You know,
yes, you have to live it, breathe it, and want it.
Exactly.
Being a therapist, I think a coach is a lifestyle. Yeah.
And the same thing with the videography, photography side, because I am full-time videographer, photographer. And people are always asking me, how did you do it? I'm like, it's a lifestyle. You have to do it on a daily, and then you have to make the jump. You just have to like willingly just say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to quit my part-time job, you know, and I'm going to full on just go for it, you know, exactly. And a lot of people are scared of doing that stuff. And
it's one of the scariest things you'll ever do, though. And I think that unless you're fully aware of the passion you have for it, that when shit gets hard, you're still willing to do it. That's what I think most people don't have in them. There's this saying that says, like, for you to succeed in your passion and your true authenticity of what you're doing and your work and your art, you are that 1%, and you're going to do what 99% of people are not willing to do. Like, keeping it real, I woke up at like 6 a.m. this morning because I still had to drive out, still get ready, still have my fur baby okay. You know what I mean? Like, make sure she's set and still show up. And I was like 2-3 minutes late still.
Yeah, you're fine.
No, I know, but like on me, I'm kind of like, I want this.
Yeah, exactly.
This relationships are important to me. Media is important to me, or just doing this in general is important. People won't wake up.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I do have a hard time waking up too myself. Like, I was dragging myself out of bed. I was the same.
But you did it.
I was the same way. Like 6 a.m, like my alarm went off. Like, no, like it's Sunday. You know, like I want to sleep. I'm like,
so do I. But this is the time that we have.
Exactly.
And we're still willing to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. With that note, let me restart this camera, and then. All right, going back to our conversation. As far as like what you feel like, as far as like being in the position that you're in now, do you see anything as far as like the change, like with women actually choosing career paths like you? Like, do you actually get to know people like you now? Like, or are you still seeing it develop? Like, as far as like the positions that you're like women are in, like you're in a good position as far as like a really well-established position. Like you were saying, back when you were in elementary school, junior high, and maybe high school, you didn't see a teacher or someone that would.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that's a two-part question. I think there's always room for development, and there's always room for more women of color that are entrepreneurs and business owners in the C-suite level. I mean, I always want to see more of that, but I mean, come on, like let's look at the climate of our society right now. It's just not looking good. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that's still on the back burner. And I mean, let's be realistic. For every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 75 if they're lucky. 70 cents on the dollar. I'm fully aware that, you know, when I negotiate and I propose my speaking engagements, my media appearances, a man will get paid more than me solely because he is a man. I know that, and that's something I'm still trying to build towards. And, you know, I think programs like the one I'm doing right now at USC for entrepreneurship and leadership with multicultural women, that program has changed my perspective so much. Because there are other women in there like me where I'm like, like I'm not the unicorn by myself. I don't feel as, I don't want to say alone, I don't feel as independent in my journey as I used to.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like at the beginning, I think, like I literally just talked about this with somebody. It's like this marathon where you have so many people like running with you. But after a while, people get tired.
Yeah.
They give up. They don't like it anymore. And then you have few and few. But now what I see is I run with other entrepreneurial women of color. And we're not running exactly together, but we run like this. And we check in with each other. We're like, hey, girl, what have you experienced? Hey, girl, I just got this proposal for blank, 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 like 10K, like 15K, like, yes. Like, that's a win for me, you know? Like, so they throw me a comment about, like, girl, what nail color? Which one are we doing? Yeah. And then they also throw in the business side of it. Yeah. I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And as far as, like, the friendships that you've developed, too, like, it's almost like I could definitely relate to that. But you do it in a completely different way.
What do you mean?
Well, the way that we met. You know, it was just so random. And you ended up texting me. You like out of the blue texted me, hey, like I'm Z, you know, like
I always follow up.
You know, exactly. And I'm like, whoa, who? What?
Yeah, I always follow up.
Honestly, like I always felt like when I meet people, or when I've developed friendships, they've always developed like because they're nearby, or I work with them, or I see them on a daily sometimes, you know, like more organically, but
versus effort.
Yeah, exactly. You make the effort as far as like calling people and then like just texting, like, hey, how are you doing? You know, like, just want to see how, you know, like, just catch up, which I honestly feel like it's very important. Like, I do it now, not with the, like, I don't do it like you, like, where I don't feel comfortable enough yet to do it with people that I just met. I do it with people that I've already known or are getting to know.
Like a warm lead.
Yeah, exactly.
A warm connect.
Yeah, exactly. But you're completely different. You're like so ballsy. You're like, man, I'm just gonna. You texted me and like this friendship just developed off of that. Yeah. And I honestly, I like that. Like, we've had conversations about this, how we became friends and stuff, how random it was, and how I felt about it. And then, you know, like you've asked me questions like, oh, what could I have done different? And I'm like, man, is this a business meeting? This is an interview? Like, well, what's going on? But I actually, off of the questions that you give me, then allows me to analyze what you're asking. So then I could then analyze myself, and then I could analyze everything around me. But those are the questions that I don't get on a daily. You know, like I don't get those questions. Like, I think you asked me like, oh, what could I have done differently if I would have approached you again the day that I met you? And honestly, I forgot what I said. But there was a conversation within that conversation, you know, like, I think I had just said, oh, it just came off of more business. And then you're like, oh yeah, but you know, I think then we went off of the whole aspect because you're a girl.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I mean. It was a conversation within a conversation.
Yeah. It's, you know, that's a great point you bring up. And that's something I've really had to work on and own that, you know, like as a woman and as you go out there networking and meeting people and connecting with them, and boundaries are so important. Like to establish them, feel the water, see how people kind of move and how they react to things, and if they're respectful or not, or if they like I can't tell you how many times, like, dude, even through the DMs, like, come on, like there's some thirst, and I'm like, are you looking for therapy or not? Like, what are we doing here? You know, like this ain't Match.com. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel you on that, and you're right that like I could be a little warmer with it, but because of all my experiences, and that's any woman, like even men, like women are thirsty too, and where I'm like, yo, you need to have better boundaries, and they're like, no, he's cute. I'm like, he's married. Like, did you think about it's inappropriate past 11 p.m.?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not okay. Yeah, exactly. Your proposal can wait till tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. But those are the conversations and the questions that I then analyze and then put into my perspective, like, oh, she gave me great points, and then how could I then put it into my business as far as like a videographer? How could then I approach a woman as far as like when I'm directing her? And all, like basically I love the conversations that we've had because they make me think, not on the moment, but like
reflective.
Like even weeks, I'm like, oh, this is what me and Zeet spoke about, you know, like the time, whatever. And then I definitely relate to it. And then I'm like, okay, oh, I got it. Like I just analyzed it. And then the moment came and then it clicked. Like, okay, that's what she meant. But those are the things that I do love hearing when it comes down to conversations. As far as like when I have a conversation with somebody, it has to be an intellectual conversation. It doesn't have to be all the time intellectual because I like having dumb conversations too. But
right,
but still, like I don't want to be just having a conversation about nothing all the time. You know, and I think we were talking about attractiveness. You know, like I like talking to people that I know that they know what they're talking about. You know, like they
know their shit.
Yeah, well, not only on their business side, but just life, you know, wise. Like
centrados, like they're centered, they're grounded, they're like they know who they are.
Yeah, or they're actually seeking that path. So they
on it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I work I don't work there. I'm mostly there because I do a lot of real estate photography and videography. So I go visit offices sometimes. Yeah. There are certain realtors that I seek. Like I always look for when I'm at their office. Like it's a huge office and there's a lot of realtors within that office.
A lot of different agents.
Yeah, but I always go towards certain offices that I know that they're going to basically either give me some energy, some sort of conversation that's going to give me some sort of depth of like what I'm doing. Yeah. And because they're older or because they're, you know, like they're financially more wiser, I know that if I have any questions, you know, they could actually answer them in the moment and they're not going to give me some BS. You know, because I do have friends that they'll like, well, I'm going to get into the stock market and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, so what do you know about the stock market? And I'm like,
have you made moves?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear
so
you.
that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
when it comes to conversations and when it comes to people, I gravitate towards those people. Like when it comes to intelligence and when it comes, not just intelligence, but wise people. Because intelligence could be interpreted as being stupid too.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, what do you think about this idea? For me, like, things really got real when I realized it was different levels and or types of intelligence. Like, there's emotional intelligence, street smarts, right? Like, that's a huge one. Like, for me, I think that's something I'm still developing. Like, sometimes they're like, girl, like, are you dumb? Like, why are you gonna leave your purse there? And I'm like, oh, I trust the world. And they're like, pendeja, like, you can't do that. And I'm like, okay. So my street smarts needs to grow. But then there's like this other level of emotional maturity,
Yes.
emotional, like,
Yeah,
reading other people. And that's, I think, the sweet spot.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, or one of the terminologies that I got off of the book that you recommended me.
Which one?
Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence 2.0 or like what?
I think he just spoke about what it is, because there's intelligence as far as like IQ.
Yeah.
And then there's emotional intelligence, which is more of just like how to control your own emotions and then how to read people's emotions as far as like if you're a
the
leader.
emotional maturity.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one of the terminologies that I didn't understand before because I've never heard about it. You know, like when we're going at school, we talk about social studies. You know, what the hell does social studies? Like talking about social interactions about what? There's nothing social about it. Like technically we're, it's a repetition of the same stuff, the same people, the same this, and it's all basically watered down too. Everything
But
that
it's Western history too.
Yeah, and it's watered down. It's all watered down. They don't
Yeah.
tell us everything. So when it comes down to like certain things about therapy or human emotions or human behaviors
Or happiness.
or exactly, or psychological.
How do I become happy in my lifetime?
Yeah,
Right.
and when the emotional or emotional intelligence is one of those things that I've now come across off, and now that I know about it, I think about it, not just for the people that I'm talking to, but off of myself.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? Why am I not happy right now? Is it because I've been editing for 4 hours and I haven't gone outside? And now I analyze it. I'm like, what should I do now so that I could bring up at least some sort of serotonin into my body? Or I don't know, like I feel like I need something besides what I'm doing, because what I do, I love doing what I do. But sometimes when you do something a little bit too much, it becomes overwhelming and you start to dislike it.
And it becomes work versus
And it becomes
art.
work, and then the work doesn't really reflect off of what you really want to put into it. So sometimes it's good to actually analyze your emotions as far as like what you're doing, not only with the person that you're with, but also the work that you're doing, you know, because I feel like now that I know that term, I analyze it and I basically have to step back. I'm like, okay, I need to go outside. I think it was a month ago, I bought it's called a one wheel. A one wheel is basically a motorized skateboard. It just has one wheel and it's motorized. So what I do now when I need a break, I just go outside, ride around for at least 30 minutes. I'm outside, you know, and I feel the wind in my face. I'm not really like exercising or anything, but I'm outside, and that basically alleviates some of that stress. So that's certain things that I now understand. Like I need 15 to 20 minutes. I know I can't go with my friends because it's going to be more than 2 hours, 3 hours that we're going to be spending, and then the work's not going to get done. I still need the work to get done, so I know that I need small breaks. So that's why I bought it, like just to alleviate some of that, because I can't stress over certain things anymore that I can't control. You know, and emotional intelligence is one of those things that I feel like is very important that people understand what it is, not only with the workspace that they're in, but also for themselves. Like you really have to understand and analyze what it is that your brain is telling you. You know, but off of that, do you get what I'm kind of trying to say?
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. I mean, there's days where I have just so much paperwork, like paper pushing. I can't stand that. I don't like paper pushing. I rather be with humans and having deep ass conversations.
Yeah.
But it's part of my job. Like it's part of, well, I said it. It's part of my job, not part of my alignment.
Yeah.
It just comes with it, and we kind of have to deal. I'm still struggling with it, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
There's days right now during quarantine where oh my gosh, I don't leave my place like for 10 days.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
Wow.
no, I have groceries or I just have it delivered and I'm there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I can't do. I have to be outside at least once a day.
Yeah.
Like at least I didn't grow up outside. Like my parents, we didn't grow up in a situation where we had like money. So me and my sister basically had to come up with games. We had to come up with certain things to like use our energy, you know, because we're kids, you know, like we didn't grow up inside. We were always outside with our friends. We were digging holes, we're throwing dirt at each other, but we were outside, you know, like, and that's kind of what I now gotten used to. So whenever anybody says, oh, you have to stay inside, that for me is just a big, like, you have to lock me in the room and throw away the keys for me not to go outside. Like, I have to have that, like, outside. Like, I can't be in front of the computer. I can't be with my phone.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's why I like going to the mountains every now and then. That frequency is a lot different.
Yeah.
But that's just the way that I kind of perceive it for myself. I don't know how you do it. Like 10 days, that's a
you know, I
lifetime
know
for me.
exactly. Like, I can relate to that so much. For me, for the past several years, like, I can honestly say since I was like 15, I've been working, but I'm always on the go and out so much that I'm rarely home pre-COVID. And when COVID hit, it was like a blessing. It was weird. Like, I see so many blessings in COVID. Like, every day I'm thankful for something that it's brought to me. Like my dad being retired, me being able to stay home, me having the time to become a fur mama. Like, just so many things. Like, I get to like be like bomb and still get to do this in my sweats. Like, that's dope. You know what I mean? Like, professional from the top and then just chilling.
Yeah.
I love being in my socks all day. Like, there's little things that I'm so thankful for. Like, man, I've got to cook more now because I don't have to commute back and forth. My office is really close to my place, but I think for me, it's going back to what I didn't have as a kid. We were always on the go when I was a kid. My parents were always busy bees, you know, salte pa fuera, like go outside. I like being inside.
Oh, okay. So
I think what I crave is being a homebody.
Gotcha.
Like, I don't want to do anything on the weekend. Like, I just want to have some bomb food, chill, sleep, repeat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are things that I have been learning about myself too. Is like I don't know how to take breaks. You know, like as far as like I don't know how to sit and just just focus on nothing. Like I don't know how to do that. Like I'm teaching myself that right now.
You know why? This is what I figured out about myself. I don't know. Maybe you could relate or anybody else listening. But because if we give ourselves and allow ourselves the time to be with ourselves, we have to feel. And feelings are fucking inconvenient.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
I can't stand myself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the difference between solitude versus feeling alone.
Yeah.
We could be in a room full of so many people and still feel alone and then be with, and I'm like, I'm fulfilled. I'm chilling.
Yeah.
But it's a muscle like anything you gotta practice.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it takes a while to get there, but like now, you know, it relates so much back to this. This is where it really hit me one day, to where when I first started with my first therapist years ago, back in like 2012, this was me, where I would walk into a room and worry, oh my gosh, are they gonna like me? Am I okay? Am I dressed? Like all this stuff, all this trash ideas came to me. And now I walk into a room and wonder, will I like them? Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame when you approach something like that. Like, I am the prize. And it's not conceited. It's more of a knowing your value and your light that you bring to something. And it's
That's
a muscle.
very
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
And the reason people can do this is because they know how to be with themselves.
Yeah.
So whether you're chilling like with a water bottle or in a room full of 100 people and nobody talks to you, you're like, I'm straight, you know?
Yeah,
like,
that's
I'm
awesome.
good.
Honestly,
Yeah.
that I have to really think about that as far as like when next time I'm alone, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, because honestly, I don't know how to do like nothing.
with.
Like, I don't know how to do nothing. That's the thing. Like,
Well, busyness is a sign of trauma.
it could be.
Yeah.
Honestly, it could be. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I'm so busy that I'm just maybe
Yeah.
just like blocking certain things that I don't want to think about.
Well, yeah, that's all of us.
Yeah, so-
busyness is a sign of trauma.
Wow,
I
that's
remember the
awesome.
first time I heard that, I was like,
Wow.
damn, that's me.
I have so much
Yeah.
trauma then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we all
awesome.
do. We all got to work through it
Yeah,
eventually.
that's awesome though. That's really insightful. Like, wow, I'm really thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what this is for.
Yeah, right. It's just
Yeah.
just having a conversation, thinking about myself. Like, all right.
Yeah.
As far as growing up, and of course growing up, I don't know. I don't really know your background story as far as like, I know you have a sister.
I have two sisters.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Well, see?
Yeah. My dad's a girl dad.
Oh, okay.
My dad's a girl.
All
Today's
right.
Father's Day, so
All right.
yeah.
See, that's
Shout out
something
to my dad.
I thought
yeah.
you just had one sister.
Nope, I have two sisters.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And as far as like growing up in the like household, how was it? Like, were you guys like, and like, were you guys good as far as like financially, or were you guys good as far as like, I know we spoke about a little bit about your dialect. I mean, when it comes to like speaking Spanish in school, was that something that your parents really pushed? Because I know my parents really pushed the Spanish. Like
yeah, it's funny you really ask. I remember this one time I had this huge fight with my dad. I was 8, and my dad like super parentified me, and he's like, "Tú tienes que hacer esto. Like you have to do this." And I'm like, "I'm 8. Like I'm not supposed to be translating your GED homework for you. Like that doesn't make sense." So my dad, so my mom, she spoke English and Spanish really well, but both my parents didn't come to this country documented. Like they both had to work towards like the residency and then the citizenship. And, I remember my dad even practicing for his citizenship test and us quizzing him, right?
How old were you?
Oh, man. I was maybe like 10, 12.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like 10 or 12, but we grew up in a really humble home. Like we did not have the means. I remember living very like day to day.
Okay.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up the same way.
Yeah,
so.
same.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, that's a really big part of the puzzle, I think, of like why I hustle so much. Because for me at least, like hearing so many stories similar to mine, right? Why would I be sitting on my butt and doing nothing?
Yes.
Like that's the way I kind of see it. Like I asked one day, like I had a really deep conversation with my dad, right? I do nothing but deep. And then he's just like, well, he's like, I guess I came to this country for you and your sisters to have a better opportunity. And that's when it clicked for me. And I was like, cool, got it. Like noted.
Wow.
And that's it. Ever since then, I've worked since I was 15.
Wow.
Yeah, like I worked 3 jobs getting through college and grad school.
Wow.
And it was a lot, but I think it was a mix between not knowing how else to deal with my trauma, seeing, like the role models of my uncle and my dad and my mom, like we're workaholics.
Yeah.
It's how we deal with our feelings.
Okay.
Like we don't gamble, we don't drink, we don't like that's what we do. We work,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well that's crazy. I definitely grew up in the same situation as far as like finances and stuff. We did grow up like basically paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you're growing up, you don't really think about it because you're a kid. So
I don't know. I'm gonna.
I didn't think about it. Honestly,
No?
I didn't think about it. It wasn't until I got into junior high where
That
like
you notice things?
where you're more peer pressure and you're like really trying to attract a girl and you're like, oh, I don't have the shoes and I don't have the clothes.
Yeah.
And then of course high school and like I don't have the car and I don't have this. So that's where I kind of started realizing
You noted
where
it.
the finances were at and as far as like where I lived at too. But like when I was like 5, maybe till 9, I was like, I didn't think about it. Like we basically were happy as far as like as a family. Like I said, me and my sister grew up outside, so we were in a playground on a daily with our friends. And basically, it wasn't until like we had to like now come inside, do our homework, and be more like responsible. That's where you start to think about like technically where you're at in society, like financially. But I didn't really think about it growing.
That's so different from me. It's not. I noticed it right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like this really deep memory I have of like a couple things, but like I remember I say this very often, but like my parents, we rarely ate out. Rarely.
Yes, we did.
Rarely. But on top of that, my parents really weren't big on like McDonald's or Taco Bell. Like they were not a fan. I mean, that's all Latino parents.
Yes.
Like, hay comida en la casa.
Yep.
Like there's food at home, right?
Yep.
And this one time, my mom didn't have time to cook for us. And between like shuffling between, she was working full time, she was going to school full time, and she's our mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she's always been that go-getter, but I can't help but feel like my parents forgot we were kids. They forgot. They parentified us so much. They're like, get it together because we got things to do. So I never, for me at least, I never got a chance to really be a kid. I took care of my sister. This one time, we went to Burger King and my mom literally like scrounged the bottom of her purse and I'm like, this is not normal. I knew, like I was so little, but I knew, I was like, this shit ain't right. Like how do my parents work so hard and so often and we still have so little? Yeah. There's so many times I remember that growing up.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have little memories as far as like when it comes to money too. In arguments, like you said, the trauma. the trauma for me
Yeah.
of not wanting to get married right now, or not wanting to like commit, is because of that trauma of like those arguments that I remember.
That you do witness.
Yeah, that I remember, like on like I could just hear one word and I'm like, like it just brings me back, but
Yeah.
I do, like, now having this conversation, I'm like, man, this lady's just like blowing my mind.
Yep.
Like, wow.
Yep.
Like,
See,
yeah. But I do have little memories as far as like when it comes to finances and stuff like that. Not a lot with my parents, because they did. I feel like they were really good at hiding it, as far as like, why didn't we go out to eat as much? Well, it's not healthy, like little excuses like that. But I remember not knowing like the menu of Carl's Jr. until like I was 15, I think.
Right.
Like or it was like McDonald's or Burger King. I forgot what it was, but I remember I went out with one of my friends to eat, and her family. It was like way back, maybe 13 years old or 14 years old. We went to Carl's Jr. McDonald's, a fast food restaurant, and her mom told me like, Irvin, what do you want? And I was just staring at the actual menu system, and everything looked the same to me. I was like, oh, I thought they just served hamburgers here. Like, what else could they have here? And but their kids or her siblings were like, oh, I want a number one with this and that.
Right.
And I'm
yeah.
like, what? I'm like, I didn't know. Like, I honestly had to tell her, like, I don't know what I want. Like, because I didn't know the menu system. Like I said, I didn't recognize it. But those are certain things that I do remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I could definitely relate to that. That's awesome.
And I think a lot of people can. It's just either a moment of like reflection and or wanting to remember it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could kind of relate to your parents still, because the whole undocumented thing. A lot of people are scared about talking about how the process is kind of going with and how it was back then. People don't. I don't really like talking about this myself, because it's one of those controversial topics as far as like immigration. Me and my sister were brought up here illegally. When I was 3, she was 4. Basically, I didn't have, or technically, I still don't have any papers. I have the certificate of DACA, which is it's like a work permit that allows you to be here legally just to work, and it gives you the opportunity to get your social security number and get your license. But technically, you're not a citizen yet. So I could definitely relate to where your parents were then, but then I can't, because I'm not sure what the process was back then, as far as like what the steps were. Right now, where I'm at, I'm on a limbo. Me and my sister are technically on a limbo. There is no paperwork that we could do. There is no process that we could go after. All they say is like, okay, you can't have a felony, you can't do this and that, and then hopefully one day that permit will then allow you to then become a citizen, which it's been like, what, 6 years or 8 years, I'm going to say, that I've had this permit and nothing. Everybody says, well, why don't you get married? I'm like, I don't want to get married for a piece of paper. That's not the purpose of that. Which I can, but it's not, for me, it's not worth it, as far as that. And I feel like that's one of those things that I've never brought up, like on the open. Like a lot of people don't know that about me.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you speak English, and
right.
Like, oh, you're
you
Americanized.
Went to school here.
Yeah, you're Americanized. What are you saying? You were born in Mexico? Why? And like, well, it's just, my parents wanted something better for their kids. They brought us here, and basically that's where we're at now.
Yeah.
I can't say that my life would have been worse in Mexico, because I didn't live it. I'm here and I lived this life, so I know what I lived here. So, but I am grateful that I'm here. And the conversation that your dad, or you said, was it your dad or your mom, about
wanting better?
Yeah, wanting better.
Yeah.
It was a conversation with my aunt. It was one of my aunts. She comes here every 2 years, and I think I was 12 years old, and we're in one of the bedrooms at the house, and we're talking about our lifestyle, me and my sister, how hard she sees us struggling. Like we couldn't get our license. I think I was 16, because I was going to get my permit, or I wanted to get my license at that time. And she was like, well, I see how hard you and your sister are working all the time and studying, but I don't see anything for you guys here. Like she didn't see the bigger picture as far as like where we could end up.
She saw limitations.
She just saw the undocumented. You're just undocumented. She's like, if she basically just told me, she's like, if you're going to stay here, because she was always telling me, come live with me in Mexico. She basically told me, if you're going to stay here and you're going to leave your family in Mexico, you have to be better. Like, you have to be better than both your parents. And that stuck with me. That basically, like, that hit hard. She was like, you're leaving your family. Like, that you never got a chance to know and grow up. Like, your cousins, they're going to grow up. They're going to have kids. Those kids are going to have kids. You know, we don't know if we're ever going to see, like, you're ever going to meet them or see them or interact with them. So you have to be better. Like, whatever you do, you have to be better. And that really stuck with me. Like, that was like, whoa. Like, and till this day, I'll think about it every now and then, but it's not one of those things I think about on daily. Yeah. But yeah, now that you brought up what your dad said, I'm like, yeah, I had a conversation like that too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's those moments of asking like the right questions to the right people. And it comes naturally. I think like if you start asking really good questions to yourself, you're able to do it with other people.
Yeah.
Like I think one of the deepest questions I've ever asked my mom is like, what do you want from me? Like, what do you, not for me, from me. And I was like, damn, like I got some really good answers over time. And even getting to know my parents as the man and woman that they are, not my parents. Like getting to know them even before I was in their life. That's been a journey, and that's been a goal of mine until they die or I die. Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely see the drive that your parents carry and that you have. Like, I see the I don't know, I see how it relates to where you guys are at, like education, you know, pushing the education.
Me and my sisters?
Yeah, you and your sisters. Me and my sister are a little bit different. You know, my parents definitely, like, I'm pretty sure every parent really like wants their kids to strive for an education and all that stuff.
Not always.
Yeah,
I think that's a misconception.
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of got off from my parents. Like, you know, like, oh, you have to get good grades and you have to do this and that. But what they didn't understand, that my brain
didn't work that way.
It didn't function the way that the school system functioned. Like, I was very, like, if I felt that my teacher was dumb, that was it. That whole school year was done for me. Like, if I felt like, you could be the smartest person when it comes to books, math, science, but when, like, I think we spoke about like the actual person, that it's within a person. If I felt that person was dumb, I'm done with you. Like, and that's kind of where I related to my teachers. I remember one teacher, it was in 7th grade. She basically told the class, I never wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a nurse, but I didn't pass the exam.
Man, that's real.
And I'm like, okay, you don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. So why am I here? So
but you matched.
Like, after that, I'm like, no, that's
wow.
That's it.
Because you knew they weren't in it to win it.
They weren't in it for anything. They were just in it for that paycheck.
Right.
They were just, right. I was like,
they were paper pushing. They were paper chasing. Yeah.
And a lot of my teachers were like that. They give you like those packages. I'm like, okay, here's the package. We want you guys to finish this before recess or before this. I'm like, okay, what is this teaching me? Like, what is this? You know, like
the value.
Yeah, the value. And of course, I had a hard time with literature. It was the hardest thing for me. Just like, what am I doing? Like, circling, just guessing. Like, I didn't learn nothing. I was like, okay, now I reflect on those teachers, because I wanted to be a teacher. That was my goal in life, is either to become a rock star or to become a teacher. And I was trying to do both at the same time. I was playing music with my band, and I was going to school to get my credentials. At the time that I was going to get my credentials, I was actually teaching at 2 private schools. I was probably teaching for like maybe 2-3 years, maybe 4 years. I'm going to say 3 years though. Towards the end of that 3rd year, I started to notice my motivation in being a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be those teachers that I remember. I don't ever want to be that teacher that is just coming into class because I know that I need that paycheck to pay for whatever mortgage or whatever bill or whatever, anything that I'm having to, like, you know, fulfill, you know, like the finances. You know, I never wanted to do that. So I basically decided this is where it needs to end. And that's where the whole photography and videography came in. And it was very random that I went into it, because I never studied photography or videography in school.
You think so? I don't think it's random at all.
Or is that a boredom? I think I spoke about this on a podcast. It was like, I was bored, went to Best Buy. Like I said, I can't be inside. like I needed something to basically entertain me, because I was practicing teaching, writing music. That was my daily routine, but I wasn't indoors. I needed an excuse to go outdoors. So I went to Best Buy. I didn't know what I was looking for. I thought I was going to get a Xbox or a PlayStation or something. But in my head, I'm like, why am I going to buy something and I'm going to get stuck inside? Yeah. So I saw the camera. I'm like, well, I remember I used to like drawing when I was little, and I don't have the time to draw anymore. And the camera could be an excuse for me just to go out and take pictures of my friends or of a plant. But at least I'm going to be outside. And that's how it evolved. I was out of boredom. It wasn't out of necessity. It wasn't out of something that I was seeking. It was just something that I saw it that day, and it just became what it is now. Yeah, but of course the whole teaching thing is just like, I still remember that. I'm like, I can't be the teacher that I remember, that math teacher, like that couldn't pass her nurse exam, and now she became a teacher. I'm like, I can't do that to another kid,
Yeah. It's so funny, Irving, like now that you're saying all of this, like I'm also having like a reflective moment. You know that my mom's a retired school teacher, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I watched throughout my entire childhood my mom go to night school at AVC in order to become a teacher. And then I watched her even go into her master's degree.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember thinking like, she really actually wants this. That's so weird, like you're saying that. But on the opposite end, my dad always wanted to be an architect. Never did it. Yeah. And I also acknowledge that. Like I acknowledge both my parents and the reflectiveness of like actualization. Like in Spanish, that word is so strong on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, actualización, to where if you don't reach that, you're not fulfilled. And that's so many people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hold on to that topic because I really want to talk about that right now. Going back on the topic about purpose, I had a conversation with one of my friends. I'm not going to say his name, or I'm not going to say where he lives.
Okay.
Because
you're not going to call him out?
It's a small group as far as the AV area. Okay. But we were definitely talking about purpose, like self-purpose. And even when I'm trying not to say it the way that I'm saying it, I'm really not trying to put him in the spot, because we were talking about his spouse.
Okay.
About because he basically confines in me certain things that I'm pretty sure he doesn't say to anybody else, and that's why I feel like I'm having a hard time even
going there,
repeating what he was saying in the same way. I'm just trying to figure it out in a different way, like in a different format. But it was basically about purpose.
Yeah.
Because I honestly feel he's a really good husband, like really, really good. But sometimes I don't know what it is to be a husband, but I know how to kind of reflect on certain things as far as like being a person, And I told him, like, you have given your wife everything. Like, as far as like a good household, given your kids basically anything that they could actually...
Good role modeling.
Good want, like he's a really good dad, a good husband, everything, But he was basically telling me that his wife has been like moody, like, and it was that whole aspect of purpose. I basically told him like, well, what's her purpose? Like besides being a mother and besides being a household, the one
or being a spouse or
exactly.
a daughter.
Yeah, what does she inspire herself to do?
Yeah.
And it was one of those questions that he couldn't answer, because she never has given that answer to him like out loud, or even has given him an idea of what she would want to do. Because I'm like, well, does she have any hobbies? Does she like painting? Yeah. Does she like puzzles? Does she like this and that? And he's like, well, she likes talking. I'm like, honestly, she could be a telemarketer, but she needs something to do, because honestly, I feel like it's just boredom. She's giving herself this idea that she's just a mother and she's just your wife, but what's her purpose? And there was one of those things that I just kept repeating to him, like, everybody needs and desires a purpose.
Yes.
It's just a lot of people don't know how to go.
Preach, Irvin. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize it until like sometimes it's too late,
You think so?
I think so. Like I feel like a lot of people get contempt, and then they just kind of go on a daily, because their life is too easy sometimes. They're like, well, why am I going to give this up? And they're like basically being negative throughout the whole day, about, being bored or, not fulfilled or self-fulfilled, because that's what it really is. You know, because I said my friend, he's really good as far as like very patient, you know, very understanding. But it's one of those things like he can't do for her. And that's right. That's what I told him too. I'm like, you cannot do it for her. She has to do it for herself. And sometimes because you've given her such a good life, it's harder for her to realize
that's her work.
She needs to now push back and say, I need something for myself. You know?
And she needs to learn how to advocate for herself too about what she needs. These are all skills though. Man, Irving, like you touched on something so important. I have to share with you that for me, like partnership must include that. Like they must know. Like I don't care if your purpose is to make the best damn sandwiches at Subway. Like, I mean, obviously, like there could be other things. But my point is clarity. Yeah. Clarity on that. Yeah. Because if they don't know that, they probably don't know themselves. Yes. And if they don't know themselves, how can they love themselves and love me? Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I could definitely relate to that. And that's where the intelligence idea comes from with me. When it comes down to like someone that I feel attracted to, they have to be intelligent. I know, I think I said this already, like I know certain intelligent people could be dumb too. Like they're those dumb, intelligent people.
You know, they went to school and learned nothing.
Well, they went to school to repeat what that school said, and they're just repeating that verbiage. You know, and that's, I feel like a lot of politicians are doing that right now, and a lot of people that are very intellectual are just regurgitating that. And I feel like they sound intelligent, but in reality,
there's no depth.
If you have common sense, you know that they're dumb. You know, they use nice fancy words or whatever, and they seem intelligent, they dress intelligent, they look intelligent, they probably look like they shower on a daily, but they look dumb. They're like, man, you might as well just go live under a bridge. You know, like you're just, it's just the common sense, you know, like that person. It's just like it's a robot. You're just regurgitating whatever you read, whatever your professor had said to you, and for some reason you can't own it as a person. You're just basically repeating it as a parrot. You know, that's all it really is.
I feel like that's how most schools are though. Like I felt like that. Like I only learned the books part of like therapy until I actually got in it to see clients, and I was like, whoa, this is what this is. And I didn't even get better at it until I had a certain amount of hours under my belt. That's why they make you do a certain amount of hours. Yeah. No, but I've also seen it with the professions that I've marketed with, the people that I'm around with. I hear them, like in the beginning I was a little bit more naive because I wasn't around business people, but now that I'm around them all the time, and now that I've been around them for years, and then when we have meetings with other people, they'll repeat exactly what they told me to attract me, to make them so that I could work with them. You know, they'll like give them compliments, but it's all repeated conversation. It's all repeated conversation. It's not even personal. It's all like, oh shit, you did that to me. Like now I'm seeing who you really are. You know, you dress nice. You know, like I said, they have nice suits, they have nice watches, but it's not even authentic. You know, they're just repeating exactly what they read in the book. You know, like I've seen like the titles of books, how to have conversations with friends, how to blah, 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 blah. And I feel like they're just repeating what they're reading, but they're not actually believing in it, you know? You know what? I don't even know. How to create relationships 101. Step 1, step 2. It's kind of like a recipe.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like a lot of people are intelligent, but they're not. It's like a dumb intelligence that they just, I don't know what it is. They just memorized. You know? But yeah, this is very...
It's inauthentic.
Yeah, very unauthentic. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of catching up to it. People that are like that. Yeah. A lot of politicians right now are just being really unauthentic as far as like who they are, and then what they're really trying to say. They're backpedaling on their words, and you could feel it, you know, even when they're reading off of the telemarketer, where I could definitely see it. Like I'm really interested in what you're interested in, which is human behavior. Yeah. So I'm always catching those little snip clips of someone just basically just reading off of that telemarketer, and they're just like, their face is so numb that I'm like, okay, you don't even believe what you're saying right now. So like, why am I supposed to believe you? Why do you think other people are going to believe you? And why do you think people aren't relating to you? And why do you think people aren't really trusting you? when you're telling us this stuff. And I feel like those are certain things that a lot of people catch on now.
Yes, and you know what? This is exactly where it goes back into marketing, branding, and sales. Like, if you don't even believe in your own product, and if you are your own product, the people working with you and for you need to also be on deck. They also need to have the same mission in mind, the same belief in the product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
How's your overall like family doing now? Like as far as like
COVID.
no COVID or just in general, like how's
My dad's just living his best life, retired. It's so funny, like watching him. Like my dad made a joke the other day. He's like, "Puras perras me traen, ningún nieto." Like all they bring me is dogs, like no grandbabies.
Yeah, that's
so.
how it
Me
was.
and my little sister don't have any children yet, and my
Yeah.
sister, she just finished her PhD at NYU. So like
Wow.
she's a nerd. I'm a nerd. I don't know, like it's kind of funny, you know, my dad's always like, estudien, like go to school, you know, have good opportunities, that's why we came here. We did that, and now they're all mad, now they're all complaining, like, you're busy, you know, you're going to go get it, whatnot, and I feel it's kind of like a conundrum.
Yeah.
Damn if I do and damn if I don't.
Yeah.
So now they're really pushing me to like, come on, like,
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
getting married, are you having kids?
No, I every year my mom's like, I ask her, I'm like, oh, what do you want for Christmas? Quiero un nieto. I'm
Right,
like,
I want a
what the heck?
grandbaby.
Like, okay, right
Yeah.
now I'm just gonna
Right,
go
right.
find a girl.
Right,
like,
right,
it's
right,
gonna,
yeah.
like, it's gonna pop up right
Right.
on Christmas for
Right.
you. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely could relate to that too. But I feel like every parent, as far as like when they get a kid reaches a certain age, they're like, oh, you're getting a little older. Like, I want a grandkid. You know, like I could definitely relate to that.
Well, some families do, some don't. I've been noticing that.
Yeah?
So, yeah. I know for me, it's more of it's still the cultural bias there, because I am 33 and they're like, se te va el tren, like you're older. And I'm like, stop. Like, I'm literally what you call a modern woman.
Yeah.
To where I know for a fact motherhood for me is probably in the next like solid like 5 years, but I still need to be mindful of my body. I'm fully aware of that.
Yeah. And those are the certain things that a lot of people don't really think about too. Because
Yeah.
once again, I have another story about something that could relate to that. But it's one of those things that this town is so small that anything that I say, people are like, oh, he's talking about that person. That I'm trying not to say that story. But I had a friend, or they're still my friend. She was in a situation where she was going on a career path, but it's a long career path to take. It's one of those career paths that you basically have to live it, you know, like we're talking about a lifestyle. And sometimes when you're in a situation where you're wanting a kid, you know that lifestyle isn't the same thing, you know. And basically she decided to have a kid at the age of 25 because she felt old, you know. And my argument was like, you're so young. Like 25 is nothing.
Yeah, that's a baby.
But because of the stigma of aging, you know, especially for a woman, and, you know, like the energy that they're going to have later on, or I don't know what it was in her head that kind of like gave her that stigma, but that's kind of what I'm perceiving from her. But it was one of those things, like I remember she was like living a lifestyle that I felt like she could have pursued and basically accomplished if she would have kept going, and could have had a kid later on. But because of that mentality, she decided to have that kid and then stopped what she was doing. So I don't know if that was her purpose as far as in life, because I know
Maybe.
You know, some people are just like generally just like they want to be parents.
I used to say that.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Before 27, I used to say, you know, my life's purpose is to become a mother and wife, because I didn't know any different. And then one day, like, I just kind of connected the dots. I got to know myself more.
Yeah, and I think that do you think that's what it is though, as far as like when people like jump into certain things, like people jump into relationships or jump into marriages because they feel like they're gonna die alone, and they're like, this
Fear.
could be the only person that's gonna love me, and you know that at the end of the day they're just living in misery their whole lives. Do you think that's what it is though, like self-awareness from like each other, like each person? Because like we said, being a parent could be purpose, you know, but
Yes,
not
it totally
but
can be.
not every person's.
Yes, but Irving, I think this is so important to kind of consider. It's temporary. But let's say, God forbid, that child dies. Then what? Then what's your purpose? Go have another kid? That doesn't add up to me. Because after I thought about that, like, that's temporary, and it's the most important word is it's conditional. It's conditional upon another person's existence versus your own.
Yes.
Right there.
I know what you're talking about.
Yep, that's it.
I know what you're talking about.
Purpose is not conditional upon another person, another thing. It's upon you.
Yes. And I feel like it's very selfish too.
You've been listening to the book.
It's not that just the book, because I remember I wrote to you on IG. I'm like, hey, I read your book. And I told you why, or I didn't really get into the details, or we didn't really get into the details because we didn't have a chance to talk about the book. But there are certain things about the book that I definitely could relate to, like that, because I already kind of knew, like I have already analyzed it, off of, because our culture, or it's not really my generation anymore, but more my mom's generation, where they would have like 4 or 5 kids, but they were all starving, that like, and they were just like, oh, have more kids, and why don't you have the 6th one? I'm like, why? Like, what's the purpose of having another kid? Just to say you had another kid? Mm-hmm. Like, what?
Or my favorite is like, los que Dios dé, whatever God will give us. Like, that's cool, but how are you going to feed your kids?
Exactly. Yeah. And I have friends that, they grew up with a lot of siblings, and they all have, I'm not going to say, I'm not trying to generalize, but they just didn't have what they could have been given if they were only like maybe 2 or 3 kids, besides 5 to 6 kids,
Yeah.
Because the finances really do matter. Like, I know materialism isn't everything, but when you're not allowing your kids to fulfill certain things because you can't take them to soccer practice because, you have to work at your 5 to 9 or whatever, like there are certain things that I do not talk to my mom, about, because I know I wasn't planned. Like, I can honestly say I was an accident, I wasn't planned. But I'm like, because I asked her, I'm like, well, what was the reason for having another kid? Like, you guys didn't have money. Like, because I do like talking about that. Like, I want to know, like, the reasoning.
Your parents as people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then also, like, relate it to myself, because I do think about, like, why am I not married, or why don't I not have kids? Because my friends have kids. So it kind of goes back on you, and like you reflect on it. Like, well, they seem happy, but it's just momentarily those questions, like just those questions that I have in my head. And one of those things, it's just like, I don't want to have a kid right now because I'm living a lifestyle that is basically selfish, because it's for myself, and I'm fulfilling it for myself. And having a kid just to have a kid, just to say that I had a kid, I feel like it's selfish too. And I feel like a lot of I'm not going to say friends, I'm just going to say people.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I've known and gotten to know, they're not in the position to have kids. And they basically decide to have a kid.
Right.
Because it's the next step after marriage. Or it's the next step after living with a person for God knows how many years.
Right.
And it's one of those things like, oh, okay, what's the reason for having that kid? Like, are you a good role model? Are you good in a position where you need to be in the position where you could take care of them? Because I see a lot of people are like just leaving their kids with their parents now. Like, they're like, okay, well, I'm going to go off to the clubs because that was my lifestyle, and I'm going to leave my kid with you for the night. Like, what was that purpose then? Like, just to IG your baby's face, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yep, it's a thing now. Yeah.
But yeah, I could definitely relate and actually understand what you were saying though. Like, fulfilling your needs off of a person isn't really fulfilling anything
of purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is really relatable and very interesting topic. Yeah. And I remember I spoke to a grandma, and she said that I think she had 5 or 6 kids. And she asked me how many brothers and sisters I had. And I said, I only have a sister. And at the time, my mom was maybe 42, maybe. And she was like, if I was at her age, I would have more kids. I was like, why? But I didn't say it out loud. I'm like, why? Like, why? Like, what's the reasoning for?
Because that's a mentality. That's all you're taught. Maya Angelou says, do what you can with what you know. But the moment you know better, you better do better.
Yeah.
I always go back to that. Like, Z, if you know something, now it's your responsibility and your accountability to do better now. Yeah. Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I could definitely relate to that. So we're actually recording this on Father's Day, and I don't want to keep too much time off of your schedule because I know you want to spend time with your dad.
My dad's hungry.
Yeah, your dad's hungry, and I'm pretty sure your little dog misses you. Yeah, so it's going crazy.
Lola. Yeah,
Lola. That's her name.
Yeah, Lolita.
Yeah, but we definitely have to do this again pretty soon too because I love having conversations as far as like this type of conversation like makes me think about everything, like, and it basically goes anywhere, and it's so random too. So you're more than welcome to come back again and just let us know anything that you would want to speak about, any topic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? I think one of the like best topics that I get asked like all the time is probably about like partnership and like relationships. But then I'd also say maybe like business. So any questions about that are like really great topics. Like that could be like a forever conversation.
Yeah. And I feel like the conversation that we're having now could definitely be more elongated too.
For sure.
But, you know, like it could, yeah, I don't want to bore people either.
Yeah.
But definitely like business wise, as far as like when it comes to business, I would definitely like to talk to you about, because I'm like I said, I'm a creator becoming a business, and I think that's a topic for a lot of creators that they have within themselves. And when it comes to relationships, it's not really the number one topic in my head, but I'm pretty sure it's could be for someone else, you know. So I definitely would want to touch on that stuff too. Yeah. So
yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This has been really different.
Do you want to plug anything in as far as like, do you have anything coming up, or do you want people to know anything about where they could reach you? Because I know you plugged in your IG already, but is there any other platform that you would want to push?
I mean, our websites, but we have so many. So you could just drop them like whenever this is released. But you know what? Something I'm really passionate about, and I created out of pain. And that's important to understand, because most things that are necessary and or needed are created out of pain. Right, there's a pain factor there. We created over at Vida Latinx Difficult Mothers. So I have an ongoing group for Latinx, whether it's a man or woman or whoever, just come through, that's got a mama con drama.
Wow.
Like, and it's an ongoing group that I run once a week via Zoom online, so it doesn't matter like where they're located or where they're from, like they can join in.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, you're always doing something, and I'm like, yeah. All the time. Like I know every time that I meet up with you, you're gonna say like, oh yeah, now I'm gonna do this. So I'm like, what? Yeah. When are you going to do it? In your sleep?
Maybe, hopefully, we're going to watch this a couple, like, not too long from now. But, like, the next goal is, like, Forbes. Like, I know that. And not because it is Forbes, but because to see more of that in POC. Yes. To see more of that role modeling. To see more of, like, oh, she looks like me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think I had mentioned to you I think we had breakfast or lunch. It was last year, I think, before all this COVID stuff. And I remember I spoke to you. I'm like, from all the people that I met at that meetup, that event, you were the one person that felt like home. Not meaning that you felt like family or anything. I meant like you felt like you seemed like I could relate to you, because the way that you spoke to me. I'm like, oh, she speaks like my cousin from LA, or
like your homegirl.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So that's kind of where I feel like a lot of people are.
Was I wearing my hoops or no?
I don't remember. I think you were wearing that black dress, maybe.
Yeah,
you were wearing something black.
I always wear dresses, so yeah.
Yeah. But I do. That's kind of one of the purposes of this podcast. Is I feel like a lot of professionals go off of their marketing being professionals, but they never go off of being their own selves. Like, you know, and I always tell that to everyone that I kind of speak to, as far as like, go on your IG stories, don't filter what you're trying to say. If you're gonna mumble, or you're gonna like, if you're gonna stumble around with your words, stumble.
Let it be.
Yeah, like people could relate to that more than if you're like always
editing and
sharp. Like always everything has to be like on point. Like after a while, it just becomes too much. Like it's a robotronic thing. Like people can't relate to that anymore. And like, I feel like this is very important as far as like anybody that wants to seek therapy, or any families that are thinking about therapy. I think this is really good. As far as like a therapist is just another person. Yeah. And a lot of people don't see that, you know.
I would agree with that. I think the one difference I would say is the art of listening. Yes. It's not even the training. It's not even the schooling. It's the art of listening. Yes. And how to, like for me, some of my favorite conversations in my entire lifetime are when we talk about everything and nothing, like the dumb shit and the deep stuff, like all wrapped into one. Yes. You know, like where you go from like purpose and alignment, past lives, and it's like, yo, you feeling that sandwich? Like, yeah, that's what I love.
Yeah, so, no, that's awesome. Yeah. So, and anybody that wants to actually like reach out to Z, I would definitely recommend her. She's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So, they can reach us at vidatherapy.co, not .com.
Yeah, I know.
I always say that because I couldn't
confused. Where's that .co coming from?
It's just this new thing. .com was taken, so I was like, I'm not trying to pay the person like hundreds of dollars to take it over. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's like the salon in UK.
Oh, that's weird.
So it's vidatherapy.co.
Gotcha. It's like CO, not COM, because I got that confused.
Correct.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What is the code? Like, is that a new algorithm that I'm not hearing about?
No, it's kind of like the .net or .org. Yeah,
that's all it is.
That they're doing.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, thank you guys for listening once again via the therapy. And we're out.
All right, bye.